Hello and welcome to a new video on cryptography for everybody. Last week, a viewer of this channel asked if we could implement the prisoner's tap code. And at first, I didn't know what he meant, and I made small research and I found out what the prisoner tap code actually is. And we implemented it in CrypTool too. And in this video, I want to present the prisoner's tap code to you. I structured the video into three different parts. In the first part, we will have a look at the short history of the tap code, which is also known as the knock code. After that, we will see how the tap code actually works. And finally, we will see the new implementation of the tap code in CrypTool 2. Short history of the tap code or knock code. The origins of this code go back to the Polybius square of ancient Greece. The knock code, a Cyrillic version, is said to have been used by nihilist prisoners of Russian Tsars. And the tap code was used during World War II by prisoners of war. And also, according to Wikipedia, the tap code was used during the Vietnam War by US prisoners of war. And it's said that it was introduced in June 1965 by prisoners of war held in Hoa Lo prison. And it was invented and then used by Captain Carlisle Harris, Lieutenant Philip Butler, Lieutenant Robert Peel, and Lieutenant Commander Robert Shoemaker. And the tap code is an easy way, or maybe also the only way, for isolated prisoners to communicate. How does the tap code work? And the first question we should ask ourselves, why not use Morse code but use tap code? And there's a big problem with Morse code when you are in prison. Because with Morse code, you have to use two different kinds of sounds. A short sound, like a dit, and a long sound, like a da. For instance, the Morse code then has dit, dit, da, and so on. And that's very difficult to create using only your hand or your fist. And you could try this. Try to tap a short and a long sound only using your hand. This doesn't work. So there had to be another code. And that code is the tap code. So what is a tap code? A tap code only consists of one type of sound, a tap. And using these taps, you can create arbitrary code words. And how this works, we will see on the next slide. As I have already said, for a tap code, we need a so-called Polybius square. And you see the Polybius square here on the right side. In that Polybius square, let us have a y and x coordinates. And here is an example how encoding using such a Polybius square to create a tap code works. For instance, we want to encode hello world. And as you can see here, I marked all the different letters and encodings with different colors. So at first, let's encode the H. And to encode the H, you go to that Polybius square here. And in that square, you can see we have the alphabet from A to Z. The only difference to a Latin alphabet here is that the letter C and the letter K share the same code word. Since you can use a C where you could use a K and vice versa. So they introduced the C and the K in the same cell. And how do we now encode a letter? For instance, the H. We first search for the H in our Polybius square. Then we go to the left and see the 2 here. And then from the H, we go to the top and we see the 3 here. So the H becomes 2, 3. Then the E, for example. The E is in the first row in the 5th column. So E becomes 1, 5. And we go on and on and on with all of our letters, and we can encode our message using that Polybius square. Now, how do we transmit this message to another prisoner in another cell? To do so, we tap. For instance, we see here the E is 2 taps and 3 taps. So we tap 2 times, and then we tap 3 times. And then we make a longer pause. Of course, the other prisoner heard the 2 and the 3 taps, and he knows now that with a 2 he has to go into this row here, and with a 3 he has to select the H. So he received the H. We go on with the E with 1 tap, followed by 5 taps. And now he received the E. And we go on and on and on, tapping, pausing, tapping, pausing. And on the other side, the prisoner can then decode the taps to the original message. And the benefit of the tap code is that we only need the taps. We don't need different shorter and longer tones as we have in Morse code. And so we can send and receive messages, for instance, over different cells in the prison. As I have said in the introduction of the video, we also implemented the tap code in CrypTool 2, and we implemented it in the Morse code component, since it's quite similar to Morse, but as I already said, it has only 1 tone. So let's have a look at the tap code component in CrypTool 2. I'm here now in the Start Center of CrypTool 2, and to create a tap code you have to open our Morse code template. You go to the templates and search for Morse. Then you see a Morse code template here. When we open that, we get the nice Morse code template. I have already presented this template in one of my previous videos. And when you press play here, you can see that our text here is transferred or changed to Morse code, and the second Morse code decoder component here then decodes the actual Morse code back to our original message. I think I will increase the size of the text a little, that you can see a little more here how this looks in the end. Okay, now let's create a test message for our tap code. To do so, I just replace the message in the plain text to be sent, and then I go to the first Morse component, the Morse encoder here. But of course these are the same components, only the code type and the action is, the code type is of course the same. So when you create Morse code here, you will also want to decode Morse code, but the action is different. Here we have encode and here we have decode. And to change this to tap code, you go to the code type and we have tap code now here. And we do the same for the second component. Change this to tap code. And when we now press play again, we should see our tap code here. And as you can see, the tap code only consists of dots. These are the taps. And the nice thing here is we could now, for instance, type an A, we see 1, 1, then a B, 1, 2. And every time we have a new word, we get the slash. We have here a new word because I added a space. When I remove this, we have some more space between these letters. So for instance, A, B, C, D, E, F. This should be 5. No, these are 6. We have 5 letters here now. So we have A, 1, 1, B, 1, 2, C, 1, 3, E, 1, 4, and F, 1, 5. And then we can go on and on and on as we create our alphabet. But I want to create hello world again. And this is also the message that you have seen in the thumbnail of this video. No, I don't think this is the original message. You could try to decode the original message that I have hidden in the thumbnail, or not really hidden, that I have written in the thumbnail. And yeah, the nice thing also with the Morse encoder and decoder is now, when we stop it, you can go to the Morse decoder here. Then you can change this here to play. In that case, we don't need the output here. And the play method of the Morse code component playbacks the received or the inputted code. And to do so, we can use the audio output. Then we can connect this here. I think I have to change my audio output. No, it's correct. And when you now press play, you should hear the tap code. The problem right now is that it's way too fast. And to change this, you can go to the Morse decoder and you can change the tick duration. And I think 150 here is good enough so that you can distinguish the single letters and words. Let's try it again. Stop this here. And you can see here in the audio playback that we have different pauses. So we have a short pause inside a letter. So this is 1 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 5. And we have longer pauses between the letters. And we also have even longer pauses, that are the slashes here, between the words. So CrypTool 2 is now able to encode and decode using the tap code, and it is also able to playback that code using the audio output. The viewer who suggested to implement the tap code in CrypTool 2 also suggested to implement a method that you can record Morse code, or he wanted tap code using a microphone, and then CrypTool 2 may decode this directly into letters. And I think this is quite a nice idea, but I think it's not as easy as the implementation I have done until now. And maybe in the future I will also implement a method to actually decode audio data that you can then input via your microphone. Yeah, and this was everything I wanted to show you in this short video. As I said, we've implemented a new tap code, the prisoner's tap code that was used by prisoners of war in World War II and in Vietnam War. And I think it's quite nice and quite easy to use now in CrypTool 2. And if you want to use this, you have to download the current nightly build. It's already in the nightly build of CrypTool 2. Yeah, and as I said, that is everything I wanted to show you. I hope that you liked that video. If yes, please give a thumbs up. Also, if you did not yet subscribe to this channel, but you're really interested in cryptology and cryptography, then I highly suggest that you subscribe to this channel. So thank you very much for watching and see you in the next video.